Mr Speaker.
I call the honourable member Clea Curran.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. A woman came into my electorate office today. Her landlord has ended her tenancy of 4 years because he wants to renovate and sell, and she hasn't been able to find another house near the school that her 2 boys go to that she can afford. So in order to keep her children at their local school, her children are boarding with a friend, but there's no room for their mum. So she's staying with another friend on the other side of the city. And she came into my office this morning to say that she'd visited the children at the school and now she was walking back to across the other side of the city. She had no coat and it was raining. She is trying to do her best for her kids. She's waiting for Housing New Zealand to even accept an application for a house. And even if they do, Mr Speaker, they are likely to tell her that they have no houses available and to try the rental market. This is what is consistently happening to people in my electorate and to electorates all around the country. People who earn incomes, but whose incomes aren't high enough to feed a family and pay market rents. This government continues to ignore the calls for action on child poverty, youth unemployment and the shortage of affordable housing. They talk about wealth creation, but where is the evidence that the people who deserve a fair share of that wealth are getting it? Instead, the Salvation Army State of the Nation report released today shows once again that many New Zealanders are increasingly being locked out of a fair and just society. And that report shows that signs of improvement, there are some signs of improvement in some social indicators, but while at the top end of town and the privileged few continue to do well under this government, child poverty and the lack of affordable housing are the time bomb issues for our country. And the report repeats calls for action to address these matters, as well as rising living costs and the number of families that are struggling to pay their bills. But, Mr Speaker, this is this government's failure. John Key and National have been focusing on those few at the top, while hundreds and thousands of kids are in poverty and many young families can't afford a home. Labor's Best Start package, announced a couple of weeks ago, is the first in that series of practical and affordable policies that are going to make a real difference to the fight against child poverty in this country. It's about improving antenatal care, extending paid parental leave, making sure that families have more financial support when they need it, when they have a new baby, and by increasing the range and the scope of early childhood education. Those are practical, very targeted, very important steps that will make a real difference. And all of the experts agree that the first 5 years of a child's life are critical to getting getting that best start. We've already taken some steps to address the housing shortage with Kiwi Build, our policy. We will have a range of proactive policies to create jobs and increase wages in our cities and our regions for young people, and along with ensuring that they're going to have the educational opportunities that give them the skills to contribute to building a better and more modern society, and ensuring that there's affordable healthcare when they get sick. Mr Speaker, these are tough times. Despite what this government says, these are very tough times for many New Zealand families. That Best Start package will make a real difference in our program of reform, which includes health, education, housing and economic development. In the last 5 years, this government has treated our country as a corporation and not a country. And one of the worst outcomes of that is that our regions are going backwards. In the last 5 years, this national government has closed 8 schools in the Dunedin South electorate. 8 schools. Our city is losing daily commuter flights to Auckland because Air New Zealand has admitted that they made a scheduling cut based on a demand curve for the city, which is code that Dunedin is not on a growth trajectory. This government is responsible for the closure of Hillside Engineering, which is the heart of our manufacturing sector, because it decided that cheap, poor quality rail wagons and engines were better than keeping and building a thriving skilled manufacturing base in an important regional centre. We've lost skilled tradespeople with families who could not find decent work in our city, and they've had to move away and take their families with them. That has had a flow-on effect throughout our city. Stephen Joyce is now backing a decision by Ag Research to shift the Invermay campus in Mosgiel out of our city. It should be grown, not shrunk. It's a world-class centre for important research. We've launched a petition on this. My colleague David Clark has this week launched a petition on this very matter, and I urge anyone who knows how important that facility is to Otago and Southland to sign it, and I urge them to go and visit the website, which is www.saveinvermay.co.nz. Is that right? That's right. I urge people to go to that website and to sign that petition. Mr. Speaker, the number of young people out of work in our city is one of the highest in the country. A report in 2012 had it at 34%. Everyone knows this is a huge issue, but what does Paula Bennett do? She shuts down the only teen parent course in the city which offers NCEA credits and much needed second chance training to teen mums who have no confidence, no skills and now no hope. We've got a pressure cooker situation building in Otago and Southland health services, with work pressure from funding cuts and a growing climate of fear in the sector. We're seeing surgeons speaking out against the unacceptable situation for many people needing surgery who are being bumped off waiting lists and put on active review, which delays their surgery indefinitely. Health professionals are under huge pressure due to inadequate funding, and some fear retribution if they report mistakes, which means that adverse events in the sector aren't being reported and our standards of care are slipping. There are suburbs in Dunedin, such as Corstorphine, with zero or inadequate access to any health services. We are seeing more and more services such as breast screening and fertility and home support being contracted out to organisations with no local knowledge and for whom profit is a primary driver. Mental health hospital care is being halved with inadequate community care available. Myself and David Clark, my colleague in Dunedin North, will hold a public meeting on Friday the 28th of February at Dunedin Hospital, led by our very able health spokesperson, the Honourable Annette King, to seek public input into the health service crisis in our region. Because, Mr. Speaker, the underlying causes and possible solutions must be addressed now before things get any worse. This government doesn't care about our regions. It doesn't care about those who are struggling to pay their bills. Many of these people have jobs or had jobs until they were made redundant because of this government's policies. They're the struggling middle as well as the lower income people, and this government has deserted them. This government is arrogant, it's out of touch, and it's for the few at the top. They've stopped listening to New Zealanders, they're continuing to look after themselves and the privileged few at the expense of Kiwis, and they will ensure that any economic recovery will only benefit the top few. We stand for opportunity for every New Zealander, regardless of their background, their income or where they live.
Good speech. I call the honourable member